a wonderful, wonderful young lady calling in from New Delhi, India.
Yes.
That's where she is working and doing wonderful things. And I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a lot about her.
Oh,
So,
great.
Iman?
Thank you so much, Dr. Payton. My name is Emina Sharma. I am from Detroit, and I was born and raised there. And then in about 2014, 2015, I moved to New Delhi, India. I've been teaching since 2009, 2010. I started off teaching fifth grade, then went into special ed. And then while I was teaching special ed, I started mentoring the first Lego League team at a school back home. Yeah. And that's kind of what slowly started to spark my interest in STEM. At that time, STEM, the acronym, was just starting to come up. And it hadn't quite gained the momentum that it has now. It was pretty much kind of tiered up at the top. If you had these really high-tech, high-cost materials, then you could probably like have a little robotics team, or maybe if you were a school with the funds, you could have a robotics class. But it wasn't what we're seeing now, which is this: we can have low-cost, low-tech materials where kids across the spectrum, almost everywhere, are able to create and make and design. So in India, I got that started. I came here and I had the opportunity. I told somebody about the idea, and then only 5 years ago, that idea was just starting to pick up. I think they only had about 60 to 100 FLL teams for 1 billion people. And so I said, okay, let me see what I can get going in New Delhi. So got a little after-school club going, which was Sprouting Stems. So Sprouting Stems originally opened as a Lego after-school space. I originally started with middle school kids, but then I was getting so many inquiries from moms throughout the whole city saying, well, do you do anything for early childhood? I have a 5-year-old, I have a 3-year-old, I have a kid in 2nd grade. And I said, okay, I see that there's a need here. Let me see if I can design a whole Lego curriculum just for ECE or for the early elementary K2. And that's when things really started to explode. I had kids, we would do storybook STEM, I would do thematic units, I would still teach them the robotics using WeDo. But it's pretty obvious that using one material has a lot of constraints.
Yes, it does. Because I Legos. But, before we get too deep in there, because I got a whole lot of questions about Sprouting STEM. What was your background before you really got involved into this? Because I've had all backgrounds decide, wow, STEM is what I really want to branch out into.
Yeah, it actually, I was a gymnast, a competitive gymnast, and I stopped that. I had to stop when I was about 15. And I stopped from a pretty, well-known academy in my area, so I kind of had this ego. And I went to my community center, and I saw that they were teaching a gymnastic class to preschool kids. And I told my friend, I'm like, they're doing that wrong. I was like, I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to tell them how to do it. And so I walked over to this lady who was teaching these kids gymnastics. I was like, I just stopped gymnastics from XYZ Academy. Can I just come volunteer and teach? And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay. So I started volunteering there. I turned 16. That ended up being my first real job. And I realized, okay, I think I'm good at this teaching thing. I want to do it. So, and then by the time I was 18, I was ready to start college. So, went into education. I wanted to really make sure I had my foot in the door. So I decided, okay, let me go into special ed. Yeah. So I went into special education. I ended up getting a job right away out of university, which was really cool. And that's when I started teaching 5th grade. And then I got my master's in something. I wanted to diversify to make sure that, okay, if this education thing didn't work out, I need to have another option. So I went into instructional design,
Oh, yeah.
And corporate training, e-learning, and I'm really happy I did that. Because now more than ever, the skills and the tips and tricks that I learned getting my master's is so relevant now. So then I just kind of went the special ed route and then moved to India and really, really, really got into the STEM makerspace movement. And in India, it's been lovely just because theoretically, they're so sound in what they know. They study so much. They just haven't really gotten the chance. And now that's changing. But when I came, the infrastructure was still getting built. So now they're getting these tools to really just build and explore and create. And it's really exciting to be in India right now, to be honest. So.
Yeah, that's why I've got to come back after I got thrown out the last time. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I know I have to have a visa this time, once all of this clears up, expect a visit among you
please
and
people
in India. But
please.
The conversations I've had with friends that I know that are from India, that are in India, and people that have become part of our STEM community, the infrastructure, the tools, and everything are really growing. But you said something earlier. When you first started STEM, you sound like you started in the position of a lot of people. Everybody was thinking, to do STEM, you had to have these high cost, high dollar things. Mm-hmm. You had to have the Legos, which are extremely expensive. You had to have the Lego robots, which were extremely expensive. And to not have to have that much of an expense is really now becoming the norm, which it wasn't before.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it was really obvious even here that it was so tiered to only a certain group that could afford it, and it was kind of just as it is back home, it just gets kind of disheartening to see that you have such potential with something, but it's only reaching a small amount of people. And even within that ecosystem of like FLL, there's still only a certain amount of teams that are really being pushed forward and succeeding. You have your really very successful veteran teams in India. So I would say like 2018, 2019, it became very apparent that I'm going to need to do something beyond Lego if I want to make a bigger reach, or really just impact my students in a more meaningful way. It's just not a realistic tool. We still use Lego, and I still like the robotics component.
You should see my garage.
Yeah. Oh man, my classroom, it's like, well, some of my students haven't ever even seen Lego. So when they walk into my classroom, it's like Disney. They just love it. Yeah. And so then lockdown happened. Well, we can get into that later, but yeah.
But, I mean, let's think about it. It's with how the world is right now. It's becoming so important that students understand or have a basic foothold in STEM, because they all a lot of them have phones, they do apps. The situation has changed to where we have to be a little more self-sufficient. I mean, there are so many things that are causing us to at least have a foothold in STEM, and a lot of people don't really understand that. They all think that STEM is this big expensive thing and I can't let my kid get involved. So, give me your take on the need of STEM education for kids now.
I think the definition from our end, from the schools, and maybe not even the schools, I'm going to say the teachers' end, hasn't been really unified, because I think up until very recently, do teachers really understand the impact of STEM education and its scope? I think when STEM first came out, it was a good way for big tech companies and edu-tech companies to jump onto the bandwagon to push their products. But really what the purpose was to give kids autonomy really over the systems designed in their life, because as we know, we have a lot of very destructive systems, and we're not just talking about mechanical or electrical systems. We're talking about government systems. We're talking about systems of oppression. We're talking about maybe even religious systems. Anything that a human has designed can be redesigned. Yes. Agency by Design, Harvard's Project Zero, goes so in depth into how the makerspace and STEM movement has really, and I think it's coming back to that, but for a little bit really lost its way. It was all about the 3D printers and the robotics and the coding, but really what it's about, it's not just solely about teaching science, tech, engineering, and math. It's about giving kids autonomy over the things that they do in their life. It's almost like teaching gymnastics. The confidence that I got from learning a new skill or a new flip or a new trick is kind of the same confidence we're trying to put into a kid's hand through STEM skills. Yes. That they can, look at the world critically and consciously and know that everything is designed in and around them, and that they have the power to redesign it to fit needs. If we have a system that's not working, then we can rechange it, and that is what STEM is to me. And I'm seeing the narrative now with teachers start to be a little bit more unified. I think even in the beginning, we were all a little unsure as to what it was, even a little skeptical if it's just going to be another thing. But I think it's probably the most relevant method of learning in the 21st century, because what we're doing now with kids is very colloquial. It's an old, outdated system that was left over from colonialism. We can be done with that. We can do something that's ready for us and relevant for us right now. These kids that are going home, they have the information to everything at their fingertips. It's just a matter of channeling it and, still aligning it to what the government requires, but just making sure that the method is in a way that they're leaving school prepared. I mean,
we have such a great ability now to go through such a higher level of Bloom's taxonomy that we're not really getting there. And what I mean by that is we have not gotten to, we can recall. Okay, we're almost to the middle. You can give our kids information and recall it, because that's what we're doing in testing. You teach them something, they test over it, and it's still a lot of recall, but they're not taking it and analyzing it and synthesizing it and all of that to come up with the information that they need. I mean, this year was my first, it was my first year in the U.S. looking at it, but it hasn't been my first year looking at tests given by NGSS. Their tests make kids, it's not a regurgitation test. They have to actually do things, analyze things, and come up and synthesize the answer, which this is what STEM does for our kids. And I'm like, wow, come on now. We can take them to those higher levels of thinking.
Yeah, and they are just obsessed with the learning. They don't even realize how much content is being put into something, because it's just so holistic. We aren't so I read something. You have a child, and they're able to recall every single fact, minute by minute, of the detail of their weekend. But then they have a hard time memorizing their multiplication facts. Well, why is that? Because we're not creating these whole experiences for these kids to really just live. We're all living, and then yet in my life, I don't want to just sit down and do one thing over and over and over. I'm just going to shut off. And I did in school, which is probably why I'm doing this now.
You could imagine, I stayed in a lot of trouble in school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was my thing. That was my hands-on experience. So it's I think what STEM does is it takes learning the content, and there is a time and place for memorization, fast facts. There is a time and place for just rote learning, for sure. But it's not the only way to learn. That's not who we are as people. So it just finally takes everything And it can be a very messy process at first. I think that's another daunting thing for teachers. It looks out of control. It looks really messy. If you have an administrator comes in, the kids are talking. They're all over the place. They're jumping up and down because things are happening. But they remember those experiences as opposed to being forced to remember facts for no reason, to be honest.
Yes. Yes.
So
history was my worst class because it was facts. In fact, like, okay, the Battle of Waterloo was when, and why do I care about this?
yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're laughing, but honestly, okay, you're doing your sprouting STEM.
Yes.
And what age level are you working with?
Yeah, so the name, even when I came to India, what I wanted my organization to be changed from, it was a Turkish word. It was two Turkish words, actually. It was Zeki Can, which meant intelligent life, and it meant something for me. But I realized as I started getting more into the market that it was getting lost in translation because it was neither English nor Hindi. Well, a little bit of Hindi, but it was just kind of getting lost in translation. It wasn't really telling everybody what I was doing. And like I had mentioned before, I really saw, and I'm noticing a lot of other teachers are saying that there is a big gap. Well, especially when I was first starting, robotics and STEM was introduced at middle school, period, globally. Yeah. And it wasn't until maybe the last 3 years that we're realizing not only should it be introduced at early childhood, but it's probably vital because the way that a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old learns and thinks is exactly what we want to harness in a student as they evolve through a STEM curriculum. We want them to remain curious, ask a lot of questions, be hands-on, experiment without fear. These are the things that a 3-year-old already does. So let's create an environment to harness that. So that's where I came up with the name Sprouting STEMs, because I start them off really young. My first classes, I've taught even a 2.5-year-old, to be honest. If they're showing interest in it and they like it and they want to stay, fine. So I started off with the early childhood age, and I would say my oldest age group is about 12 years old at the moment. So sprouting stems to indicate at the very beginning we should be doing this when they're sprouting stems.
Now, you've given me your age group. Now, I had the pleasure of working with 4-year-olds, and I had never, ever worked with 4-year-olds in my life. And I'm like, am I crazy? And I did it for almost 2 years. And loved it. It was like their minds were so open to absorb 4 or 5-year-olds, and it brought me back to my own son, which is upstairs somewhere. I mean, I went on a trip with him, and he was 3, and I'm driving from Alabama to Mississippi, and every other word was why, and I'm waiting for the child to take a nap. Take a nap the whole trip. And
my gosh.
When I was teaching those 4-year-olds, and they were picking it up, they were absorbing it, and they were taking it home to their parents. And their parents was like, what is this woman doing with our kids? And I loved it. And so, I've been putting together little things that I want to work with them if I ever go back. But it's awesome. They're spongy.
Their energy is vivacious, especially, kids are so honest and they feel out your energy. So if they know you're kind of like on their side as an adult, like they're just so open to the possibilities. They are so, when they know you're doing something for the benefit of them, so you're creating this whole learning experience, knowing how they think they got it, and they appreciate it so much. It's been really exciting. I've had some students start with me when they were 3 years old, and they're still with me, and they're turning 8, 9, and it's really, really cool to see them evolve, but still just constantly questioning, like, how can we make that better? What if we do this? They're just not afraid to get in there and try things out and make mistakes, and that's just how we are in life. another thing that I wanted to break in our classes was the notion of competitiveness amongst your peers. It's just not needed anymore. When I first started off some of my kids, I would put them in groups to do projects, and of course there's a couple groups that are really excelling and a couple groups that are like, what in the world? I've never been to a class like this. What do I do with this material? This lady's crazy. She's running around. There's no desks in here. They're just not into it. I was like, so they start looking at the other kids' projects, and there was always like, ma'am, they're cheating. And we had to get into this long discussion about, we're not cheating, we're inspiring. And Project Zero calls it co-inspire, where we're finally getting peers to help each other and work with each other, that we don't have to be so hyper competitive all of our life. We can help each other.
And that's so true, because I'm sitting there with my 4-year-olds here at the school, and when I was volunteering here, and we were all sitting on our spots on the floor, and I told the kids, turn around and share with your, behind you buddy, something that you learned. And the teacher was like, there's a process called think, pair, share.
Yes.
I asked him to think about it, and then I asked him to turn and tell the person, and then that person had to share with the group. And she was like, I would have never thought of having them communicate like that. And I think that was the first year that I volunteered. But it was something I did in high school.
Yeah.
She started doing that. She goes, oh my goodness, these kids are picking stuff up.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. They need to learn new routines. They need to learn new norms. And sometimes at first, there were a couple of times where I did think, pair, shares, and it just did not work out, right?
I'm not saying everything I did.
Yeah. But after like 4 or 5 times, they get it. And they love it. They have to have an opportunity to... I like when sometimes I say with my classes, like, I'm trusting you to do the right thing. And it sounds really silly, but they take it really seriously. Like, okay, so you're going to trust us. Let's not ruin that. Or like when they get a little chatty, like I also say, I give you a lot of time in this class to talk to each other. Now is my time. And it works, because I don't stand up there all hour and talk. I make them give me maybe about a maximum 10-15 minutes, and then the rest of the time is theirs. And I let them know, like, it is their classroom. It is their virtual space. But I guess we're going back to like critical pedagogy, Paulo Freire, where we're starting finally, especially with online learning, just a dialogue between teacher and learner, instead of just one person standing up there all day wondering why kids aren't, and I hate when they use this word, but compliant.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, my classes it's not quite a zoo, but I mean, my classes are very active, and this is from my high school classes to my middle school classes, and I'm middle school right now. And I just got lucky. I found out something last week.
Oh, what is it?
I'm no longer teaching 7th grade science.
Okay.
Y'all know I love science. Yeah. But I am the new STEM teacher for my school. So I just found out last week. So I'm slowly trying to put together what the curriculum is going to look like.
That is a dream come true. That's amazing.
Because I've met some of the coolest people on the island. So I got to find out, can I have speakers come in? That's if this whole thing, depending on what the school looks like for us this year. Yeah. I mean, if anything else, I can have them on video chat, because we do have school.
Congratulations.
I'm excited that, everything depends on what the situation is when we go back. But I am so excited.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that was my dream come true. That's why I did it. Just have a STEM space. That's amazing.
It's a nice room, and I mean, they've got.
I love it.
What they've got. I know they've got iPads for the kids and computers and digital cameras. But they can do with their minds and build with their minds.
Yeah. And I think another thing that is having a curriculum. I think when I was teaching back home, there was a very huge gap into what the kids in that community were learning, forced onto them by the government, as opposed to what they should actually be doing. And so there were some really good organizations like Detroit Future Schools, where they would train teachers in media arts and photography and web design, and then spend a whole unit deconstructing systems of oppression and looking at power and privilege in the community. And I'm talking about, this was like 6-7 years ago that we were doing this. And then in turn, the kids in the community were creating the most beautiful art. And through that, they were learning so much more, so relaxed, and so just like finally somebody was listening to them. And that is STEM. Even before we were calling it STEM, like that is STEM education, is bringing that learning back home to where it needs to be, to where it hits these kids in the heart, whatever that looks like. But instead of having these big abstract topics, just making sure that what we're doing is relevant. And you can still put in your objectives. You can still hit everything that you're required to do. But just do it in a more loving, meaningful way, experiential way.
And a way that they can relate to. Because, like I said earlier, we're always just, okay, you've got to learn this,
right.
and that. Right. But putting it in their hands, because people have heard me say this, and they probably tired of me saying it, and, you know, I love y'all. Yeah. But I had my kids do lab at home.
Yeah.
Over this break that we've had.
Yeah.
And they loved it. It was theirs, you know.
Yeah.
It was their plants. They grew them, or it was their thing to build, and they did it. And they were so happy to take pictures and share on our Google Classroom.
Oh,
and I'm like,
great.
Wow, this is awesome. Now, how do you deliver your stuff now? Because I know now it's a huge change with you.
Yeah, it was really big. It was really scary at first, and India took its lockdown very seriously, which was really nice to see. So since, I would say, it was March 20, we had one practice day, and then on March 24th, the official lockdown started. And I mean, I'm in a city of 30 million people, and anybody that's lived or been in India knows there's constant noise. I couldn't hear anything, that everybody was inside, and so like pretty compliant. So I took a little break for about a month just to kind of process what was happening, and still constantly processing it. And then a very close friend of mine who runs some brilliant classes in Deli, she said, why don't you start blogging and get going again? And I said, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to teach this hands-on STEM class online? And
I've seen your videos. They're awesome.
So I started off with those. I said, okay, well, let me start off with these, you know, very easy videos that I can send my old students and maybe even some moms at home, because that was another thing. All of a sudden, all these teachers in schools are like, what do I do with my kid? And so I was like, okay, let me just make these videos, and if people like it, they like it. And it's just, they're easy things to do. So made a couple videos about buoyancy, and then you know, the lava lamp one I've been seeing going around with the evanescent material. We did one on a water xylophone, which I actually collaborated with another music organization to do that. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, let me see if I can get some classes going. So everybody was like, well, are you only doing Lego? And I'm like, well, let me now finally start to get into using everything, more by diverse materials. And I just got started. I would send them a list of things that they needed. So every week it's almost the same. They can use Lego, they can use cardboard tubes, tape, really anything. And the first couple classes, the kids kind of look at you, and I put a timer on, and I say, if you don't, now that you understand what we're doing, now that you understand the challenge, now that you've kind of seen what mine could look like, go walk around your house and look for stuff. And that's when, and I'll put a timer on, and then they walk around and they realize there's so much stuff around their house that they can use to create. And we talk about different adhesives. They use Play-Doh a lot. They use tape a lot. They get really excited that the whole house is there. So that started. So I do a 30-minute, STEM engineering course with the kids where we do a lot of different challenges. We do the really common ones, the build a chair for baby bear, or the bridge for the 3 billy goats gruff. But then for the older kids, we just finished a design challenge where they had to create furniture. And they came up with some really functional stuff, like full-on chairs and full-on cupboards that could take kgs of weight. And they're doing this all at home at their own pace. We finished a challenge where they had to do the car crash test, where you put the egg in there and you create a car to go down a ramp and not break. And the things that I'm seeing these kids come up with is amazing. First of all, they are so motivated.
Yeah.
To just do it, and they like having access to a teacher almost at all times where they can send me pictures and ask questions. So those are the things that we do for the STEM and engineering classes. Is I'll present a challenge, and I pull in bits and pieces of research from all over the place and cater it to the online setting. And then the other half of the class, we do coding, whether either through code.org, and then I also started virtual reality robotics. So one thing that I learned, and I know this is probably regurgitated for e-learning, is just keep chunking the content. These kids are starting school again, and what is happening is many schools, and it's not at anybody's fault, we're taking this very outdated system and trying to put it online. It's taking like a square and trying to put it into a circle peg. Teachers aren't really getting trained on e-learning practices. They're getting trained on software. They're getting trained on apps, but they're not really getting trained on what's the difference. How do you, the number one thing in your classroom, I don't care if you believe it or not, is relationship building. So how do you build those relationships with somebody without the nonverbal person-to-person contact? That's the number one thing. The kid needs to feel your energy, feel that love, feel everything coming from you.
Especially if you're doing e-learning. I got my last degree e-learning, and it was hilarious that some of us students, I mean, I could do it because I've done e-learning, I've written it, I've done it, and for me it was relatively a piece of cake. And I get this message from one of our students, and I'm thinking it's a guy, and thank goodness it was a lady. And she just wanted to get together because she needed that personal contact. She had to have it. And we've got a lot of people watching. I've got to say hi to my Aunt Mickey and Miss Linda and Kat.
Hi, Aunt Mickey.
Sonia and Stephanie. Stephanie's getting ready to move to Germany with her kids, and she's gonna teach her kids from home. And Nancy, and I think Danita is on here too, and I think she's gonna do some homeschooling of her kids. But I mean, you're so right. You've got to make the with kids, because they've only been in the classroom. 99% of our kids have been in the classroom with their education.
Yeah.
We have some homeschool kids that have been online, but they have to have that socialization. They've got to do it.
Yeah, and I think the ways I've been trying to, and again, I don't know who really is an expert at this for this K-12 e-learning experience, but we can always come together, give tips and tricks, and I think one thing that really made my students feel very special and very loved was just honestly like a simple phone call before class to let them know that I was excited to be their teacher, just to get to know them. And they're really shy at first, but then making sure you keep doing that periodically as your schedule fits, or do it with students that need it. Maybe you're introverts, or maybe scheduling time to meet with a smaller group of students. Like I have students who were very close friends at school and they can't see each other at all. So maybe just setting aside a little time, just like free time, let them get silly and talk to their friends and do things, but like giving them like a space where they can be with their peers, where they know that you're thinking about them. And I know it's a lot of work. It sounds easier said than done. Especially when you're teaching a class and you have so many things over your head that you have to get done. But I think it's worth it. I've seen teachers that have been pre-recording their sessions, and then instead of meeting with a large group of kids on some kind of video chatting service, which can get very messy. I think anything over 10 should be outlawed because they're constantly unmuting, disappearing, running away. So what they'll do is they'll pre-record the sessions and then just schedule time with smaller groups of kids throughout the week or throughout the day so that you're not getting that big bulk of kids that it kind of spread throughout the week. But like I said, a lot of constraints have been put on the teachers because they're trying to take an old model, put it into a place that it doesn't fit. Maybe we don't need the kids to be online from 9 to 2. Maybe the teachers should be involved as to what's the best way to system seeing kids, make sure kids that need the extra help are getting it. This is a time for us to get very creative. So I think relationship building is number one, though. And then also content. Making sure that these kids, I mean, even for adults in e-learning, it's best practice. It's called chunking. Don't be in front of the screen for more than 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yes.
Lord, yes.
Get them up and moving. Do brain breaks. I often do a brain break, and I have a PowerPoint on, and it'll be like a silly sound, and it will say brain break, and the kids know that somebody has to get up and lead an exercise. Or I'll make them play games. I'll say, okay, again, I'll have a presentation up. I'll be like, and it has nothing to do with STEM. Nothing. It's just to know that, okay, I know that they're getting restless and I know that they want to play. So I interject that into my lessons. So I'll make them run around and go find something that starts with the letter A or the letter B or the letter C, or go hold up 3 things or 4 things. Vivify STEM, they have great resources like the STEM scavenger hunt, where the kids have to do the find something that flies, find something that melts, and connect them 4 in the row. The kids love that. So just chunk it as much as possible. That's been really good. And it's a nice surprise. The kids get excited when there's a brain break and they're alert because they're kind of waiting for that. I need it too. And then I think providing them opportunities the live sessions are really used for their big questions that they have for me and for the new content, but I'm available to them throughout the week. So there isn't this mad rush to get everything done in an hour, which is a nice liberty, because it used to be that. Now they have the entire week to really get involved into something. And I've seen the change there. I see instead of, because we rush STEM learning, we rush all learning, I've seen the difference in having time to actually sit with something and really get into the design process of reimagining and rethinking. And the kids have been coming up with some really spectacular stuff. I also make sure I send out the lesson to their parents a week ahead of time. Okay. Does it take extra effort? Yeah, it does. But I think the results you can't beat the results. I don't think any longer can we just kind of wing it or just go off the book. Because another thing is this has left a lot of teachers and schools very vulnerable and exposed. Yes. Homes can see what's going on now. So I think, does it take more effort and a little bit more planning? Yeah. But do you have a happier group of students and parents? Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you're so right. The parents have to be involved.
Yeah.
Even when we go back, if we go back as normal, parents still have to be involved because it's not just for the schools or the teachers to work with your kids. And I learned that from working with my 4-year-olds. When the parents would come to me and tell me, because I would always send something home. It may be a little lab that we did, and it has the directions to the lab, because they could take it home and they could do it with their parents or show their parents or whatever. And I was shocked at how many 4-year-olds did that. 4 and 5-year-olds did that. But the parents would come to me and say, this was so much fun. He or she got us to do this with them.
Oh, I love it.
And I'm like, wow. But I mean, we have about 10 minutes left. And if anybody, any of you are just joining us, this is, pronounce your name again so I do not slow.
Yeah. It's Emine, and my last name is Sharma, but most 90% of the people I meet call me Emmy.
That's what I called you when I started. Now, if someone wanted to contact you or find out how to look at some of your lessons or something that you do, what is, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, my website would be the best place, and that is www.sproutingstems, STEMS.in, for India.in. So sproutingstems.in. Something I do want to get started, because I am noticing that a lot of teachers are going back to school. They are going to be teaching STEM, and they have to do it via CART. And I think now people are really in search of a comprehensive STEM curricula, which hasn't really come together yet.
No, because I'm having to build one. We had a great teacher last year. I mean, a great teacher. And she's moved back into teaching into her content area. And I've only been in Hawaii since January. And so I'll be building this middle school thing based on all of this equipment that I have in my class. I have digital cameras, I have iPads, I have computers, but I don't want them to just rely on that. They've got to use the engineering design process. And I'm going to shut up and let you finish what you were saying.
No, not at all. So that would be, so what I was getting to is I am in the process of starting to put together lessons or units that can be used online, so for distant learning situations. So again, all I was going to say was those will be posted on Teacher Pay Teachers, and then also on the website as well. So that, again, it's Sprouting Stems. And the lessons I'll be creating are going to be for ECE, but then also up until about upper elementary.
Okay.
So, and these are going to be low-tech, low-cost solutions to do with kids, either distant learning or in person. So, yeah.
And some of you who don't know what Teacher Paid Teachers is, it's a wonderful website where people who are very, very smart, like Emina, put
thank you.
product that they want to share with the population, with us, and at a very, very affordable cost. I mean, I think I've paid, the most I've paid for anything is maybe $2. But
and it's great content.
It's great content.
Yeah. I think finally we don't have to focus on 5 major textbook brands that really felt one track and boring. I hate to say it. And now what TPT has done is teachers are creating content for teachers, and why not support teachers at this time? And it's beautiful stuff that's there too. So I'll be posting there for sure.
Yes, and hey, if y'all don't know what it is, look up Teachers Pay Teachers. And then, every once in a while, you can find some things that people will put that are free, because I've taken free stuff off there, and I've paid for stuff. I love that website. So I'm not giving a plug to Teachers Pay Teachers, but I'm giving a plug to Emina so that y'all can go and look at her stuff.
Yes.
I'm excited about that.
Thank you. Me too.
That's me. But what do we've got I don't have my glasses on. When you get old, you can't see. We've got about 4 minutes left. What are you looking at the future? What are you going to try to do? I know right now we can't get out and go and do conferences or anything like that, but what's the future?
I mean, continue to really master this craft of teaching online, but I think now connecting with more teachers all over. I've done some thinking, and I think that that's going to be my next thing, is really just do things like this more often, have these conversations, showcase what teachers are doing. They're working so hard.
Yes.
And a lot of it is it's just a lot of passion fueling this. So STEM doesn't really have, it's getting there and it's awesome. But just like a community of teachers, I think right now everybody, even before lockdown, was in this gray area of what is STEM, how do I do it? And now lockdown has started and that gray area has even expanded even more. So just creating this, continue to create the conversations and communities with STEM and makerspace, to stay connected, because it's really, sometimes when you teach STEM or makerspace classes, it can feel really isolated, or it can feel kind of confusing because we don't have the pacing maps or the curriculum maps or the supports from, it's still kind of this very gray area zone. So yeah, during my time still at home, places here are not opening anytime soon. They're even predicting by November. Just connecting with people as much as possible, using this really powerful tool called the internet to stay connected. So,
well, hey, the first week in August, I'm doing something that I haven't done in a long time, and that is being on air by myself without a guest.
Okay.
Because I have a couple of things that I want to kind of not get off my chest, but kind of talk about talk about some of the guests. And if there are any guests who want to call in and say, hey, take that opportunity. And, if you're doing something new, because like we've got conferences and things coming up and teachers that are preparing to go back to school. For us, that'll be our first day of school.
Okay. Yeah.
The day of my first show in August.
Oh, okay.
I want to I don't want to have a guest that day because I don't want to be frazzled.
Right.
But I'm excited about that first day. I'm excited to see if I have kids either virtually or physically, because I don't know how we're going to do this. But I want to talk about what I'm going to have to do to make sure my kids are successful. Because it's going to be a major change for all of us. And we need people like you out there that are designing stuff and putting things together and putting things online that we can use to keep us from pulling our hair out.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be crazy.
And I think being prepared for that craziness and having those conversations with parents that this is a very new space, so just be patient. We have to be creative and patient. But it does come together. The kids are resilient. First of all, these kids are having the time of their lives.
Oh yeah,
they're just at home. They're fine. But they're resilient and they're adaptable and they're flexible. They will change. But to get that feeling like, oh, this is good. This is that feeling you get when you're teaching. It takes a little time.
Well, Emina, it is time to this just like
I know. You are the best. You came in my life right when I needed you. Really.
Because I am going to bug you this year. Trust me.
Please do. Bug me often. I'm just sitting here.
When the baby's asleep, you're just
5 a.m.
Sound like you have a lot to do. A lot to do.
But it's all good things. So.
Yes. but I want to thank you. This will not be your last time.
Okay, great.
Anytime you're up on Monday at 5:30 in the morning, you know I'm on.
Yes.
You can always message me or call in and say, hey.
I will.
Doesn't matter who I'm talking to. But hey, I want to take this time to thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Lots of luck in what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Send me any links that you want me to post on the show's website so that I can make sure my audience can connect with you.